Have you ever wanted a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, you have come to the right place, because you are listening to C&C Talks.
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
And welcome to C&C Talks Podcast, Season 2, Episode 7.
Yep, just reminders, we do every week. We release every Tuesday. We talk about politics, world events, and sports. It is currently Monday, February 13th, 2023, at about 1 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, and coming up on this episode of C&C Talks, we are going to be discussing Joe Biden's State of the Union address, which, Charlie, was a week ago. It feels like an eternity ago.
It does.
There's the Super Bowl, which we did do a live stream on, so make sure that you go watch the replay of that on YouTube. And then we actually have a couple of guests this week to talk about the NBA trade deadline and LeBron James breaking the all-time scoring record. Plenty more stuff to get into, so let's get started.
All right, let's start with the State of the Union, with Joe Biden giving a speech that lasted roughly 2.5 hours?
No.
Is that too long?
Like half of that. An
Really?
hour 15.
Huh.
It felt like 2.5 hours.
It did feel very long.
That's not necessarily a bad thing. In certain speeches of some certain presidents, including Biden at times, have felt way too long. But this one felt like a reasonable length. He got to.
Yeah, and
got-
I
he
really
got
felt
to-
like the message that he was trying to push through is the State of the Union is strong, which he really repeated again at the end.
Yeah,
But I think the bigger story there is the group that was heckling him for a part of that speech.
I mean, so first of all, Biden handled it perfectly.
He did.
I mean, right? He basically managed to flip. He basically managed to convince the or force the Republicans really to stand up and applaud for Medicare and Social Security after they had been calling him a liar for saying that they wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare. Also, fact check is that certain Republicans have actually said that they do want to cut Medicare and Social Security. Senator Rick Scott of Florida, who was the chair of the Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee in 2022, he said that all federal programs would sunset after 5 years, including Medicare and Social Security.
And there'd be no guarantee that they would be resumed.
They would be renewed. Ron Johnson said he wanted to basically make it something unrecognizable. Mike Lee had said that he wanted to basically get rid of it. And back to the Rick Scott one, Ronna McDaniel, the chair of the Republican National Committee, endorsed his plan. So it's not like this was just a couple of Republicans. The Republican National Committee endorsed that. But so Biden handled it well, but I think that the bigger story than Biden handling it well was the fact that there were hecklers in the first place. I mean, it's really disturbing. It's completely below the dignity of their office, Charlie.
Yes, I agree. That can't be happening.
Yeah. Let's move on from the State of the Union to a scandal by someone in Congress, which I feel like is the type of story we discuss every single week, Charlie.
Yep,
on this
oftentimes
podcast.
more than one.
Oftentimes more than two.
Yep.
But we have just one this week. That is Anna Paulina Luna, who did something very George Santos-esque.
Well, speaking of George Santos, he's looking like he might get forced out of the party.
Who knows? The Republican Party is chaos. It's just not going well for their congressional delegation. They don't seem to know how to govern themselves.
No, because they're turning on each other all the time.
Correct, and it's just the House of Representatives is just chaos.
Yeah,
that was reflected in some House hearings this week that did not at all go the way Republicans thought that they would go. So it seems like they may have turned the power off and ran.
Yeah.
But no, Anna Paulina Luna. She claimed she was Jewish. That sounds a lot like someone we know, Mr. Santos, or should I say DeVolder, or whatever else he's called. She is in fact Catholic. In fact, her grandfather was a Nazi soldier, Charlie.
Oh, well, that was a turn I didn't see coming.
Yeah. With a name like Anna Paulina Luna, though, of course she's not Jewish.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of obvious.
She's not Jewish. And while in some really big news. The U.S. has shot down several more objects from the sky, including over Alaska, over Canada at the request of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, over like Huron. It seems like maybe another one over Montana. The government has said that there's no evidence of them being the things being from another planet because
people have tried to claim that they're UFOs.
But well, they are UFOs in that we don't know
what they are,
but they don't seem to be UFOs from outside of this planet.
No, we don't know who's sending them either.
I mean, and this is just on the heels of the Chinese
spy balloon.
It doesn't seem like this is another spy balloon, and we don't even know necessarily if it's from China. But the question is, do you think that maybe China is like getting really bold and sending more stuff over, or there's also the possibility that we've just been on the lookout for it more because
I think it's the second one. I think this has been happening and we just haven't been seeing it. But now that we've had the large balloon, we've been able to spot these ones more often.
Yeah, it does seem to be a pretty serious problem that the government
it does, and the
care of.
question is, how do we stop them from coming over here?
Yeah, I mean, you just need better intelligence, like being able to spot them. And I mean, really, the only reason why these ones were shot down over the land when the first Chinese spy balloon was not, I mean, these ones were at like 40,000 feet instead of 60,000 feet. That's like
airplane level.
Like that's exactly, like that's in air traffic, and that's dangerous.
Which is very dangerous.
It's very dangerous. In other political news, Marty Walsh is resigning as the Secretary of Labor. He has served in that role since the beginning of the Biden administration. Interestingly, Charlie, he will now become the head of the NHL Players Union.
An interesting turn there.
And
from the politics of Congress to the politics of the rink.
Exactly, and it does seem like there's been quite a few Biden administration officials leaving recently. We've talked about them several weeks, but I don't think it's all that surprising because you generally see this type of thing happen after the midterms, especially when now you're heading into a situation that's going to be much more difficult for the Democrats to be able to govern.
Yes, definitely. We will see how that goes as we progress through this year.
Yeah. Now let's move on to some polling out of the UK, Charlie, that I found really interesting. The general elections at the latest are 2 years away. But
unless Parliament calls for it.
Yeah, Parliament could call for earlier elections. The polling suggests
considering polling, I don't think that's a good idea for them.
Latest polling has Labour gaining over 300 seats and Conservatives losing over 300 seats.
That is a lot.
Conservatives would be down to 45 seats with Labour over 500.
Yep, and you know what that means? Do you know what the biggest opponent party then is?
The Scottish National Party.
I believe so.
So, no, it's not looking good for Conservatives, and of course things could change.
Yeah, we don't know if they turn around this economic downturn that they have.
But it seems like they would have to change in a fairly unprecedented way for them to have a chance at keeping a majority. And right now it looks like the implications of this are just disastrous for the future of their party. And I mean, it's kind of predictable with what they did with Boris and Liz Truss. I mean, that just seems like a terrible idea, both of them.
Yeah, I don't really understand why they should do that. It seems like Sunak hasn't been the best either.
No, I mean,
he hasn't had any giant scandals yet, but I mean, that's a pretty low bar.
Yeah. Move on to Russia-Ukraine, Charlie.
Yes, the Russians have begun a very large offensive from the east. They're attempting to encircle the rest of the Donbass, but this offensive has so far not taken very much land and has cost the Russians a lot of tanks and a lot of troops as well.
Definitely.
We shall see how this goes as it progresses.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's more news out of Turkey with that horrific earthquake, Charlie.
Yeah, the aftershocks continue. More buildings have collapsed, and I believe the death toll is north of 35,000 now.
Yeah, and they're still searching for people.
I mean, a week later, it's very unlikely that they're going to get many more people out.
Many more people living. Fun, too, we have a question, which is someone wants to know whether we can talk about the disastrous effects of climate change on Jamaica. Yeah, so I don't actually know a whole lot about this, Charlie, but I'm assuming that, I mean, it could sea level rise could definitely have major effects on Jamaica.
Well, and the bigger concern in that area is hurricanes.
As hurricanes, yeah.
I mean, we've heard of Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Haiti getting hit. I
Puerto
believe
Rico.
That Puerto Rico, and I think as these hurricanes begin to get bigger, Jamaica's going to come under threat from those as well.
Yeah,
but thank you
exactly.
for submitting your question.
And that also is really bad for the economy too.
Oh no, absolutely.
So, I mean, climate change, long term, will hurt the economy much more than the short term effects of investing in better, like in a greener economy.
And we have some announcements this week as well. We have no show next week. We will be back on the last day of February. We do have plenty of bonus content next week on YouTube. We have a couple after hours as well as clips from this episode. Just a reminder, listening to the C&C Talks podcast. Thank you for listening.
Now let's move on to sports, and we'll talk a little bit about the Super Bowl, though we mostly covered that for a good long while, I think almost an hour and a half on our live stream Sunday night.
We will leave a link to that in the description,
in the description,
of this
of course, yeah. But how about for people who don't listen to our content on YouTube, what's like your main takeaway from the Super Bowl?
I think the main takeaway is both teams really deserved to win, but just really not the way it happened. That holding call was very unfortunate, but I do think a really good game. And that penalty was so unfortunate because it really tainted what could have been one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time.
Yeah, and my main takeaway, Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Indeed.
Very simply, and he's just, 27 or 28? It's truly incredible.
It is.
And now let's move into talking about the NBA, and got some guests here, Charlie.
Yes, we do. We have Soren and Owen. You remember Owen from one of our very first episodes, actually. I believe it was episode 3 or 4.
Episode 3, I believe, yeah.
And
It was a big week in the NBA with the trade deadline. Of course, lots of top players getting dealt. Of course, LeBron James broke the scoring record last Tuesday night. But let's start the trade deadline, and let's start with Kyrie Irving being traded to the Mavericks and Kevin Durant being traded to the Phoenix Suns. What does this do for the balance of power in the West?
I think the Mavs have probably like the best backcourt duo in the league right now, so I think they'll
Yeah.
be dangerous. But I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
think
guess
it's
we
gonna
have to
be
see them play.
It's gonna be interesting to see Luka Doncic and Kyrie and how they can
It's
work
dumpy.
together.
Do you think that Do you think that they're gonna get along?
I don't know yet. I think it's hard to say.
From the
but-
two, I
well,
think what was it? 2 games they've played.
One or
Just
two
one.
games that they've actually played together. Yeah.
I think there's some chemistry. I think they have potential. Yeah, if they don't
Yeah.
like.
Both had pretty good stat lines in their first
Yeah.
game together. And then what about in Phoenix? Are they now the title favorites, I guess?
I hope so, and I hope CP3 gets a ring, bro.
Yeah, I think
He
they could
deserves
be.
it.
I don't think they'll win, but I think they're definitely a contender.
All right.
so then who's stopping them then?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all know.
Who then?
I don't think I even have to say it.
I think you do have to say it.
Big jaw. Big jaw.
Big job.
He said he was fine in the West back in December.
He's perfect.
I mean,
and I
the
think he
West
still
has
is.
gotten a lot better though at the trade deadline. You think that he's still fine in the West?
I think he's perfectly fine.
Well, and I do think whoever comes out of the East is most likely going to win the finals anyway.
And then we're talking Bucks,
Boston
Celtics,
or Milwaukee.
or Milwaukee. Does Philadelphia have a chance in the East, guys?
Philly might.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't
think
even. There's a couple randoms,
Yeah.
so I wouldn't worry about
You know
it.
who no longer has a chance in the East is the Brooklyn Nets. What went wrong with their that
The
KD,
quote-unquote
Kyrie
super team.
The experiment that was KD
Yeah.
and Kyrie.
Well, I actually kind of like their new team, and because watching their games, I think they actually have a lot of chemistry, and I think they could come back and maybe. I mean, I don't think they're a contender anymore, but they could make the play-in.
Yeah, I mean,
No, I fully agree. I think if they build around their players, especially because I feel like with Kyrie and Kevin Durant, it didn't give some of their more, I don't know, some of their players not a chance to shine, but some of their players have really stepped up.
it still feels like they need a star to actually
Yeah.
become contenders again.
Cam Thomas has been that star.
Yeah.
For the 3 games in a row, he averaged 40-plus points.
That is true, but is that something that you think is sustainable for him?
I mean, not really, but.
I mean, not really, but if he keeps up a relatively good level of play, considering the amount of draft picks that they have, I think they're definitely, at least for the future, for the time being, they are going to be one of those teams that you can look at to start really definitely improving in the next few years.
Yeah, but for me, it does seem like this is definitely more of a play for the future. I mean, we see some of the picks that they've gotten. I believe that they got a pick in 2029, Charlie.
They do.
I mean,
They're
they're
2029
looking
first rounder.
to build a long way out, and to me, it just seems like 3 wasted years in Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Well, yeah, but also I think Mikal Bridges is fitting in really well, and he had a good game against he had a good game against.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so Mikal Bridges, he had never missed a game in college. He never missed a game in the NBA. He's on pace to play 83 NBA regular season games this year. Your thoughts on the Warriors? They made a fairly small move where they traded James Wiseman to the Pistons in a 4-team deal, and they managed to reacquire Gary Payton II from the Trailblazers, who's injured, and that they've said that they're hoping to just be able to get him back by the time that the postseason starts. Is this even a team that can make the postseason at this point?
I think Curry getting injured, it's bad, but it also gives their team time to improve and develop their stars. So I think it's not necessarily all a bad thing.
All right, Soren?
I fully agree with Owen. I don't really have much to add to that.
Yeah, it feels like they have a really good starting 5, and really that's what you need most in the postseason.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there's definitely concerns on their bench as well.
their bench is a disaster, frankly. Got to stay healthy in the postseason, and at least in my opinion, they have at least half a shot to make some noise, go deep in the playoffs. Other deals, Patrick Beverley was traded to the Magic, and Reggie Jackson was traded to the Hornets, both coming from LA, 2 different LA teams, both then bought out by the teams, the Magic and the Hornets, respectively. What are your thoughts on those?
So this Lakers team, I think they have potential to maybe make a run for the play-in, but with D'Lo, and yeah, I think they could. It could happen. They could, and maybe they could make it to the first round of the playoffs, but I don't know.
And it feels like Anthony Davis's health is crucial.
Yeah, that's true.
The Lakers are an interesting team, but are they still going to have a shot like next year going forward into future years?
I don't know. I don't know when LeBron is going to stop playing at an all-star level, but he's not showing any signs of stopping.
He's really not. Speaking of LeBron, again, we mentioned this a minute ago, he did just break the NBA scoring record, beating Kareem's record of 38,387 points. Here's an interesting stat, which is that only 7 people in NBA history are within 10,000 points of LeBron, including no one currently. In fact, the closest active player is Kevin Durant, who's more than 11,000 points away.
Yeah.
So, is LeBron the greatest of all time, or is that still Michael Jordan? I'll let all you guys weigh in on this.
I mean, to be honest, I think it's LeBron. I think he takes it away here. If we just look at the stats and just honestly just like player ability, like I think LeBron is just way better. But I think just like looking in the future, like I think one rookie, even though he hasn't played all this season, but Chet Holmgren, I think. What are you laughing at, Owen? I think he could break the record if he puts in the work.
Oh, really?
I see potential in him.
He just lost a year of his career. You can't just lose a year of your career and hope to get 38,000 points.
I mean, but like LeBron just
What about Victor Wembanyama? He has potential.
He's gonna get snapped.
Is this a record that any of you think could be broken though?
Not for a while.
I think so. I think we'll see some players in like the next 3 to 4 years that
It's basically
maybe have the potential
impossible to
break
get 38,000 points in your career.
I mean,
everything has to go perfectly right.
when Kareem broke the record, LeBron was not born.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's held it for a long, long time. What are you guys' thoughts? Charlie, do you think that LeBron's the greatest of all time, or is it Michael Jordan?
I think it's close, but I do think it's still Michael Jordan. Just the domination that team had for an entire decade just really puts him over the top, in my opinion.
What about you, Owen?
If we're talking about like the legacy, then I think it's Michael Jordan.
Yeah, okay. Soren and Owen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. That will conclude the podcast. Make sure that you subscribe. Episodes coming out every single Tuesday wherever you listen to podcasts. You can check out our website, cctalks.net, which has everything you need to know about the show. and call us with your questions, 360-389-2630. Again, that's 360-389-2630. And you can follow us on Twitter at C&C Talks Podcast. Our producer Morris, our production designer Zach, and our proof editor Drake. I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie. See you next week.
Thanks for listening.